All right, so today we're going to create some customers and then invoice those customers for products that they're purchasing. So I want to show you this. This is a step to take if you want to have a more formal document that shows what the customer purchased from you, whether it's a good or a service, to kind of send to the customer. You can even take this a step further, and once you send the actual invoice, you can receive payments through QuickBooks. They can act as like a third party to collect the payment from the customer and then deposit it right in your bank account. Obviously, they have their normal credit card processing fees and ACH processing fees, but it is a really convenient and easy way to kind of get paid without having to worry about checks or Venmo or another third party intermediary. Just using QuickBooks directly can make it very, very simple to collect payments from customers. So first thing is we need to add our two customers that we're going to send invoices to because I don't have them created in our customer list. So we're going to create the first one. It's going to be CoinSafe Enterprises. CoinSafe Enterprises. Their email is here. They operate in Austin, Texas. And phone number is here. All right, so I have CoinSafe Enterprises created, and as soon as you create the customer, it'll take you into their specific customer dashboard screen. And on the screen, you can see more information about the customer, their address. This is a direct link to email them, call them. You can see a P&L by customer as long as you have all the customer income and expenses categorized properly. So not only picking the account that you're sending it to, but also which customer that transaction is associated with. It's a great way to do if you're doing some sort of job costing or trying to figure out exactly how much it costs to manage and handle this particular customer. That's a great way to actually narrow that down as well. For now, we're just going to create an invoice. So I'm going to go in the top right. It says new transaction. I have the options for invoice, payment estimate, payment link, sales receipt, credit memo, or statement. Right now, we're just going to choose invoice. We're going to let this open. This can be as simple or as complicated as you need it to be. So they have a lot of like pre-filled items, and you can kind of give a breakdown of the email that you have with the customer or pictures or anything like that, and it'll kind of fill in the invoice for you. But we're not going to use any of that stuff. We just need a simple invoice to send to the client, and that's kind of it. So we have them, since I created it from within in their customer section in our books, it automatically knows that we're sending it to CoinSafe Enterprises, has their email address. If I want to CC or BCC anyone, myself, or somebody else in my company, another contact at that company, you can do so from within here. It defaults to the invoice number, which is, this is our first invoice, so 1001 is the first option. You can pick your own terms, whether you want this paid within 15 days on receipt, so it's due immediately, etc. You have that ability to customize your terms for each invoice. Next thing it's going to do is have me pick a product or service. So let's think about this from the customer's perspective. When they receive an invoice from you, you're kind of already explaining what you've done or what you're going to do for them, right? And the options we have in QuickBooks is to pick an account category. So like we talked about before, is that premium sales? Is that consulting? Is that income from product revenue? There's all these kind of different sales account names that we have in our books for our own internal purposes, but we don't necessarily need to share those with the customer or the client. So because of that, we have this product or service field, and that allows us to basically have something that is front facing for the customer, but on the back end, it's linked to a specific account in our books so that when the customer pays this invoice, we can see that amount that they paid show up in our books in the right spot. For example, it could be a sale, it could be a reimbursement for an expense, so we want it to go against an expense account. It could be lots of different things. But this is something that's different from just recording the deposit or income on your books directly from that transaction screen, because this is something that the client is going to see. So it's almost like we're having a mask over the real account name so that it looks more palatable for the client. So instead of just choosing sales, because I'm honestly not exactly sure where that is mapped to, I'm guessing it's just mapped to sales, we're going to add a new product or service. And that says, okay, what is this? So we're actually going to change it from service to a non-inventory item. So we're going to call this all right, so we're going to call this the gold package equipment purchase, and that's the name of the product and service that we're going to choose. So every time we pick the gold package equipment purchase, that's going to automatically, I don't want to change that category, that's going to automatically get recorded in the sales account for premium package sales. I can also add a little bit more information about items included in each gold package equipment purchase. Right? So this is the description that's going to go along with the name of the actual product that you've selected. And then you can also set a price or a rate. So if you know that every time they purchase one, it's $500, I can set that here and won't have to fill that in every single time that I choose this gold package equipment purchase. So let's do that. I will save and close. So now it's filled it in for me, but let me just delete it just so you can see it fill in on its own. So if I choose this gold package equipment purchase, you'll see that it fills in the description for me. It fills in the quantity of one, the rate of 500, giving us a total amount of $500 owed. And if I was to change the quantity to say they purchased 5 of those packages at a rate of $500, that's $2,500 in total. And what they actually purchased was about 15. And then, let's say 20. Let's say 19. And then I'm going to add a second product or service specifically for shipping. So I want the customer to also reimburse for shipping. So that's going to be the service. Category is blank shipping of equipment purchase. This is not going to be, let's see. I'm going to change this to shipping. So I'm creating another income account called shipping income. I'm not going to set a price or rate because this is, I'm just going to fill this in on my own. I'm not going to set a specific price for each time the customer or the product is selected. So I need to get to, change this to 18. My difference is, all right, so I put in right now that we have a gold package equipment purchase, which is 10 items. And we have 18 of those that were purchased at $500 each, which gives us a $9,000 amount that they owe. The shipping It's $214.77. So the total amount they owe is $9,214.77. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this invoice, backdate it. You'll see why in a second. So that is backdated to September 15th. And I'm going to save it. And then I will click review and send. And this gives me an idea of what the actual invoice looks like when it gets sent to the client. So it says, Dear CoinSafe Enterprises, we appreciate your business. Please find your invoice details attached. And this can all be customized. It's all customized from up here. You can change the subject that gets sent to the client. You can, again, change who you're CCing or BCCing. You can send yourself a copy. You can change what it looks like when it is sent to them and what it shows as your business name. As long as everything looks good, you can click send on the invoice and it'll get sent right to the client. I'm going to back, and I'm just going to save it again and then close out. I didn't actually send it because I don't need to actually send it. I'll show you in a second. So now if I go into my customers, now I can see the open invoices that I have. You can see it says right here, $9,214.77 is open, 3 open invoices. You can also see it here is the open balance, for this particular customer. And I can even click on this. And when I see the transaction list, it'll list every single transaction. Invoices, estimates, which are not actually invoices yet. Those are before you create an invoice, you create an estimate. And then any payments that were applied to this. If you also click on the actual invoice to go into it further, you will see the history of it. So you'll see how many times the customer opened it, if they've opened it at all, if they've even seen it. You can see how they've interacted with it, what time, all those kind of things. You can see when it was edited, all very important information that you'll need. For some reason it's not loading, but I promise it does work. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our transaction screen. And I made sure to set that specific amount exactly because I knew I had a deposit into my bank around that time for that same amount. And you'll see if I scroll down, QuickBooks is smart enough to know, hey, you have a deposit for the exact amount as your invoice around the same time. So it looks about 30 days before and 30 days after, tries to find matches like that. So this is what I was referencing in an earlier video where I said we didn't really want to categorize this transaction directly to our profit and loss, because this actually is an invoice that's created in QuickBooks. If I was to just record it directly from here, I can do that. However, then my invoice will never show that it was paid, and I'll always look like that customer still owes me money. So instead of recording it right from this screen, if you have an invoice that's created in QuickBooks, always want to make sure you're matching it. This matched with only one invoice, so I don't need to look further into the details to see which one is correct. If you have multiple invoices out to customers and they all pay you $500, it can get very confusing to try to figure out who paid you and which deposit you're matching up to. But this is a very specific amount for a very specific client, so I know for a fact that this is the same invoice that they're paying. I'm going to hit match. It'll be removed from my bank download screen. It'll now be recorded as income on my profit and loss, which I'll show you in a second. And if you look at the client will no longer show that they owe any more money. So let's go to customers. And now you can see now the $9,214 shows as recently paid. There's no open invoices anymore, and there's no open balance listed here because we've successfully said, hey, they had an invoice that was open, but they actually paid it, and we see that they paid it because it hit our bank on 9/16. So it looks like that was paid, and that invoice is now closed. So if I go over to reports, my profit and loss, Now you can see that our premium package sales have increased significantly. So if I open up the detail behind that, you should be able to see the 2 transactions that we recorded directly from that transaction download screen, and also the invoice payment. Oh, so there was actually 3. That's right. There's 3 transactions in total that were just regular old deposits, not linked to any invoices or anything like that. And then you have the $9,000 of invoice of amounts that we received from that invoice. I click on this. And again, 9,000 was just for that sales item. The other 214 was for shipping. So we'll see that in shipping as well. Now you can see the actual total invoice. You can see below here that it was a payment was received on 9/16 to zero out that balance. If I click on that, that basically takes you to the deposit that we just matched. So there's always a way to figure out what deposit was matched to what and where the money was downloaded from the bank. You can see here this was an ACH deposit from CoinSafe Enterprises for $92,1477. So that gives us the assurance that it's the same transaction that we just matched that has been the one to pay off that invoice balance. So let's just do 2 more invoices. Let's go to customers again. I'm going to create some new customers again. So this time it's going to be SafeCoin. And email, phone number, address, Seattle. Save that. It should take us right to their profile. That's where I'm going to create a new invoice. This one's going to be way backdated to April. So we'll give them 30 days to pay it. So this one is backdated to April. We're going to say they also purchased the gold equipment package. They bought 19. Shipping was $294.59. I'm going to save this. Again, normally you would review and send, but I'm just saving it because I know I already have the payments for this. And then I'm going to close out. I'm going to do a new invoice. This one's a little more recent. So this is 8/5/24. Yeah, I called it different. That's right. All right, so this is also. No. My own pop-ups are messing with me. Okay, and then shipping. This is $278.39. All right, I'm going to save those. All right, so now SafeCoin users owes us a total of $19,672. 2 invoices, invoice 1002, 1003, both for approximately the same amounts, but there's a 4-month or so gap between the 2. So if I was to go back to our transactions, QuickBooks says, hey, we found invoices that haven't been paid yet that look like they match the amounts that you just created invoices for, which is great. That's super helpful. However, I want to show what might happen if we are looking at our AR, customers who owe us money, and I'm looking back and it's way past April, but I know for sure that the client has paid me. So I'm going to click Receive Payment. So what this is doing is this is telling QuickBooks, hey, I received this money, but I haven't put it into my bank yet. Or I know that it was put into my bank already. So what you're doing is you're artificially telling QuickBooks that the invoice was paid and don't expect the client to pay it again. Don't send them reminders to pay it. Don't have them think that it's not properly paid. We are artificially telling QuickBooks that this has been paid. And what we're going to do, it automatically defaults to SafeCoin users as the customer because I was already in their account. But I can say, hey, I received this payment date. This is when you would look up when you actually received the payment. If it isn't today, you would say, I received it on 5/2/24, and I put it in my business checking account. Total amount I received was the exact amount of the invoice. I'm going to save and close. So now when we refresh, it says, oh, we actually received a payment already for that $9,000. Back out of here. I think I can leave, right? Yep. Leave without saving. Oh, I was creating a new invoice. So it says, hey, we already received a payment for that $9,794. So all that the customer owes us is this $9,878. However, this is something that trips up a lot of clients. Once they mark that the payment has been received, now it's really important that you're matching up the actual payment that you said you received with what comes through your bank account. If we go back to the bank transactions, you can see before it was trying to match to both invoices, invoice 1002, invoice 1003. But now if I refresh, it should now show we're matching to one invoice and one received payment. Let's see if it does what I wanted it to do. All right, so now you can see on this first transaction, it says we're now matching to a payment from 5/2/24. And it's only showing 5/2/24 because that's what I input when I said I received the payment. It didn't actually hit the bank account until 5/20/2024. But this is the same transaction. It just shows a different date that's not even close because that was what I input manually. That's sometimes why if the amounts that you're sending for invoices are so bizarre and hard to kind of replicate, it's almost better not to mark any received payments. Just make sure as you're going through the bank transactions that have downloaded, you're looking out for those invoices that people are paying, as opposed to matching up the received payment. Because from an outsider's perspective, if we're looking to reconcile your books and we don't see this $97.94 ever deposited into your business bank account, we're going to think the client didn't pay it, even though it was marked as paid. So I can do the same thing as before. Marking it as a received payment is just kind of an intermediary step just to get that invoice to zero out so that the client doesn't bug you anymore. But it doesn't change anything from the transaction side. You're still going to match just like you would before if you were matching to an invoice. I'm going to match this and I'm going to match this. Now, if we refresh this page, it should show that, should show that SafeCoin users do not owe us any more money because they've paid both of the invoices that we've sent them. And that is true. They are now looking like they are zeroed out. Again, we still have our artificial payment that we created of 5/2 that didn't really hit the bank till 5/20. And then we have our regular payment that just uses the transaction date from the bank as when the invoice was paid. So now SafeCoin users do not owe us any more money. And we've recorded those transactions from the bank download screen so that everything is accurately recorded in your books. Go over to the P&L, you will see the same exact thing. Everything is nice and tucked away in the proper homes. And if I click on this total number, I'll see the sum of everything that makes this up. And you can see how the shipping and the actual products that we sold are split separately. So now we definitely have a mix of invoice payments, regular deposits, and then also some shipping income as well. All right. Next, we're going to talk about creating some rules in QuickBooks, especially with expenses and reoccurring expenses that happen every month, because those can be easily categorized in your books without you even having to do it manually.